Hibernation Sports Talk up and rolling. Hope you're having a great day. If you know, don't mind us. I was just we were. It was just me and the boys bopping in the background.
Me and the boys were bopping.
Is what was going on. Rest in peace to a couple of great ones. Of course, Dave Parker, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Have you seen the T-shirt? If you hear any noise, it's just me and the boys bopping. Have you seen that shirt with the sweet hat that he used to wear back in the 70s?
I did see that.
That's what I'm referring to. If you don't get the reference, then that's on you. But
I remember I saw it yesterday, and I've always known that was a thing, but I always forget who it goes back to or who it's related to.
It was Dave Parker. He had this sweet, I don't even know what kind of hat you call it, that he wore in the 70s, and in the T-shirt. I actually, when I heard he passed away, I thought about buying one of those shirts, but it's almost like too many words because it's like all block lettering and it fills up the whole front of the shirt. But it's a sweet shirt. But and the unfortunate thing, passing is always unfortunate, but the guy is finally going into the frickin' Baseball Hall of Fame, and he passed about, I think, less than a month before he actually goes in. So rest in peace to a great one. One of the dudes who, like one of the first guys on a national level, him and Willie Stargell from that Pittsburgh Pirates team that won the 79 World Series against the Baltimore Orioles, like two of the like first national guys I really remember, other than like Reggie Jackson and some of the obvious ones from back then, from when I was young. And another unfortunate passing, former Notre Dame and NFL defensive lineman Oliver Gibson passed away yesterday. He was a fourth-round pick by the Steelers in 1995, played for Lou Holtz for some excellent Lou Holtz teams in the early to mid-90s, and had a 9-year NFL career that saw him go to the Cincinnati Bengals as well. He's from Illinois, and he coached some high school, head football coach, and also an assistant basketball coach at his alma mater in Romeoville, Illinois, after his playing days were done. So rest in peace to Oliver Gibson, Notre Dame great as well. Well, Jesse, we've got a lot to dive into on today's show. Are you fired up for this topic today? Todd McShay breaking down Jeremiyah Love on his latest podcast.
Yeah, I am excited for it. I think when you get the opportunity to talk about Notre Dame's most exciting player, most prolific player on offense, and then to kind of hear, what the national perception of him is outside of kind of this Notre Dame bubble, I think is always exciting.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go ahead and while we're doing this, so then we can kind of put it behind us. I'm going to thank you very much, Salty. He says it's a stovepipe hat. And here is, for those watching the YouTube, there is the sweet damn hat that Dave Parker was rocking when he was with the Pirates back in the 70s. If you hear any noise, it's just me and the boys bopping. That is like an iconic T-shirt. That's an iconic look by the one and only Dave Parker. What do you think of that? Have you seen that picture before?
Yeah, that's the one that I was referencing that I've seen a lot of. Let's just say not everyone could pull off that look.
No, but Dave Parker sure as hell could. That's one thing Dave Parker could pull off. So there you go. So we got that in there. Who knows? Maybe I'll just find that T-shirt. I might have to find that T-shirt because I think it's
you are a T-shirt kind of collectible guy.
So. I am a T-shirt guy. This is very known. I am a T-shirt guy. Okay, so Jeremiyah Love, longtime NFL draft analyst Todd McShay, now hosts a podcast called The McShay Show, fittingly enough. McShay's a longtime NFL draft analyst, known primarily probably for his work when he was on ESPN, kind of like back in the days when he and Kuiper would go head-to-head and argue and stuff like that. I don't know how contrived it was, but, they made sport of it for a while. And a guy named Steve Muench is McShay's co-host on the McShay podcast, the McShay Show. They both played football. They played football together at Richmond University several years ago. And Muench has been a scout, and he's worked for ESPN and some different places like that as well. So the title of the podcast episode we're talking about on McShay's podcast feed is Scouting Jeremiyah Love. The Notre Dame RB looks like a future first rounder. You haven't heard any of the comments. You haven't listened to the whole thing, or I guess you haven't really listened to any, but you're going to hear a lot of the comments today. A lot of good stuff. They really like Jeremiyah Love. I'll just say that up front. Now there are some nits they pick and that kind of thing, which is fine, because I dare you to find any perfect NFL prospect or professional sports prospect in any sport. But so they talked about his pros and cons. We're going to hear a few comments, starting with their evaluation of Love in 5 different traits: competitiveness, vision/patience, agility/acceleration, power/balance, and the passing game. And the passing game also includes pass protection. So they give scores in each category, and they kind of ran through their scores in these categories fairly quickly. So I'll go ahead and play that for you. You can see, how they scored them in these different categories. And 1 being the best. I should say that up front. It is not like our scale of 1 to 10. Like when we do scale of 1 to 10, 10 is the best, 1 is the worst. On their scale, 1 is the best, 5 is the worst. So they are rating Jeremiyah Love in these 5 categories. Scale of 1 to 5, 1 is the best. 5 is what, Jesse?
The worst.
The worst. Thank you very much. Okay, so here we go. Scores on the traits.
That's what I have first, is competitiveness. Is that different on your box?
Yeah, I guess I've just cheated and made my own boxes. What do you get for competitiveness?
1.
Absolutely. Ball security is off the charts, and the way he runs. Vision patience.
2.
I went 1.5.
Okay.
Same neighborhood. Agility acceleration.
1.5.
Bingo. Same here. Power balance.
2.
I went 1.5, but I can live with your grade. Passing game.
2.
I went 3.
I get why you went 3. I get why you went 3, and then I'm going to make the argument of why you're wrong, because I've already had that debate in my own head, so I'm fully prepared for whatever you're going to say.
All right, so there you go. Todd McShay, Steve Muench, McShay Podcast. So his best score, the score they score him best in, is competitiveness, which includes ball security and that kind of thing. Second best, agility/acceleration. Worst score is the passing game. Do you heavily agree or disagree with anything that you heard there among their traits and the scores that they gave for him, Jess?
No. I mean, I think it's pretty spot on. I mean, anything between, I think, a 1 and a 2 is you can live with. I think once you get to the 3 in the pass game, that might be the only thing where you're like, maybe we could debate on this a little bit. And it sounds like they kind of, are going to debate each other. I understand the passing game. I mean, look at third down and who was used on third down last year. So
see, and I think that's got to factor into it as well. Like how much he wasn't on the field, like how much they factor it into it. Now, again, we'll hear some more specifics in terms of the actual passing, like him, Jeremiyah Love as a receiver. We'll talk about that in a little bit, as well as his pass protection. And, and like one that won't go down as a pass pro grade, I think it was the Virginia, because I obviously spent the last day or so, we're going to talk about some comps here in a minute. So I spent as much time as I could watching like Jeremiyah Love highlights, the way he does things, as well as some of these other comps, these other players that he's comped to that we're going to get into here in a minute. So I could have a better feel for just how he does compared to him. But like, for example, there was a run against Virginia where, it's like goal line situation and he is on the field, which like if this was last year, you've probably got Jabron Payne on the field because he was, like the deep red zone goal line situational guy. But Jeremiyah Love is on the field in that situation, and he goes into the hole to his left and he throws a lead block, and it allows Riley Leonard on that quarterback keeper, just to shuffle on in there almost untouched into the end zone, so like wasn't technically a pass pro block, but he laid some wood on a Virginia dude to help Riley Leonard get into the end zone, just as an example. So again, we'll kind of get more into, like some of those specifics as we go with some of the comments and stuff like that. And by the way, like, I don't know if this happened just when you were on the show last week, but for some reason, YouTube has taken away everyone's handles. So now it reverts to whatever the person had as their name when they signed up for YouTube, I guess. And Matt, fortunately, I remember Matt in his face. He says, I feel like you'd be putting out a different vibe with that hat. I think you're right. I don't think that I could pull off that stovepipe hat. What do you think, Jess?
No, I don't think you could. It would not look as good.
Could you pull it off?
Probably not. I would think I could pull it off, but
I mean, there might be a couple dudes from back in the day who are the only ones I could think of who could pull it off. But I generally feel like you and I are not pulling off that Dave Parker stovepipe look. Now, the T-shirt, that's another story. Okay, so we did talk about comparisons for Jeremiyah Love last week in one of our rapid fires. Muench has Darren McFadden, which I think is interesting to me. Todd McShay has 3 different guys he comps Jeremiyah Love with. And I thought this was interesting since we were talking about, again, the comps last week and some dudes who have made it in the NFL. So here are their comps.
Some shades of 3 different backs. I don't want to pin one guy, but just some shades. I actually think there's some similarities with Bijan.
Okay.
I saw some similarities with Breece Hall.
These are all good names to be connected to, man.
Oh, hell yeah. And even some Joe Mixon.
Wow.
A little bit of Joe Mixon.
All those guys are a little bit heavier, right? Those are all 220-plus guys. Maybe not Bijan. Bijan might be 215.
I think Bijan was like 217, something like that.
Okay.
Breece was like 220 when he came out, 222,
Mixon
something
was
like that.
220-plus, yeah.
I thought Mixon was like 218, but yeah, they were all in that range, and I think he's going to be in that range. The Bijan was kind of like the acceleration in Breece too, that like acceleration, whether it's after the catch or when they,
At that size, yeah.
Yes. Breece more polished in the passing game, no question about it. Anyways, those are 3 backs that I kind of looked through that shades of, okay?
All right, so there you go. Some interesting ones. Again, Muench said Darren McFadden, and then Todd McShay went Breece Hall, New York Jets running back, Bijan Robinson, former Texas, Breece Hall, of course, from Iowa State as well, Bijan Robinson, former Longhorn, now with the Atlanta Falcons, McFadden, Arkansas guy, and Joe Mixon, Oklahoma/Cincinnati Bengals. Is he still with Cincinnati? I don't think he's with Cincinnati anymore.
Houston.
It's Houston now. Thank you. DJ likes the McFadden comp. What I think the biggest comp for me, Jeremiyah Love to Darren McFadden, is the acceleration.
Raw
because
speed.
again, yeah, because McFadden was very fast, but he's also bigger and thicker, and I don't think he has.
He's a bit more upright. I think he's a bit more stiff than what Jeremiyah Love.
Yeah, and like he's 6'1", he was 6'1", 220. Like Jeremiyah Love playing last year was closer to 212, I think, and 6 foot tall, so not quite as thick.
I think of him as the ability to kind of make his way through the tackles and accelerate out of the box, basically.
Yeah, exactly. He did really great acceleration. Also, I think underrated receiver, and I think that's still, and again, we're going to get to the receiving aspect more specifically. I think that is an underutilized. I think we all think that's an underutilized part of Jeremiyah Love's game, and going back to that third down stuff you were alluding to. So I'll save it. The comp of all these guys mentioned, Hall, Robinson, McFadden, Mixon, the comp I actually like best. I know you went with Bijan Robinson and pure acceleration, like McShay was saying. I can see that. But Breece Hall, in terms of their game, the wiggle to them and the acceleration and the receiving, Breece Hall really gets skinny like Jeremiyah Love. Like, I think that is a real asset of Jeremiyah Love's. So I don't know. What do you think? Are you doubling down on your Bijan Robinson, or did any of these other guys stand out to you that you heard?
I'm actually going to do kind of like a morph. I think I would like to go half Bijan and half Joe Mixon. I really liked the Joe Mixon comparison. The reason why I like Joe Mixon is I think he's a powerful guy, and he's also versatile out of the backfield. He's not the best out of the backfield, He can get the job done, but I like Joe Mixon's kind of burst and his power, and I think that's an underrated aspect to Jeremiyah Love's game. And then you kind of combine the wiggle and acceleration that Bijan Robinson has, and I think, again, you combine those two, and that would be kind of my perfect comparison at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're talking like going back to Darren McFadden, which again, like in terms of speed and receiving ability, I can see it, but McFadden is bigger. Again, like Jeremiyah Love right now, after the latest heights and weights that they did this summer, 6 foot, 214 pounds. Now, he does have room to fill out. As USMA says, McShay is projecting him more in the 218, 220, by the time the draft rolls around and he's playing, which you would expect. He's going to need, like a little bit more body armor when you're playing in the NFL than what he has in college right now. But McFadden was, again, 6'1", 220. So he's got a little bit more thump to go along with that speed that he's got. And so like if I'm looking at those Arkansas guys, because McFadden obviously played with Felix Jones, and McFadden was a bit bigger and more the Thunder, whereas Jones was more the Lightning. So like to me, Jeremiyah Love is a little bit of a hybrid of McFadden and Jones. Like if you could hybrid them together, because he's got more of Felix Jones's wiggle, but he's also much sturdier, I think, than Felix Jones. And you and I, got to see Felix Jones because of his Cowboys time, but he's got the speed, the acceleration. I think he's a better all-around back and built better than Felix Jones. But again, he's not quite, to the bulk size of Darren McFadden. But I think, like the speed that Jeremiyah Love is right there between them someplace.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I really like the Darren McFadden comparison as well. I'm having a hard time coming off of it. I just think on the edges and perimeter, Jeremiyah Love is a bit better than Darren McFadden. I think he was a little bit more straight line.
I do too.
A little bit more between the tackles, but once he kind of burst through that box and he had the acceleration, it's just, I think what separates, and it's hard to say because this is still at the college level and not the NFL, is just what Jeremiyah Love is able to do laterally. And I know that'll decrease when he gets to the NFL, but I think that's what's so special about him is he can go north and south, and he can also go lateral. And
exactly,
that's why I think of Bijan Robinson so much. He has speed in all directions, I guess, is what I'm most trying to get at. And I think Bijan Robinson is the best example of that in the NFL. Guy who can run at any angle and have kind of breakaway speed.
See, I still like my Jahmyr Gibbs comp. Now, granted, Gibbs is only 5'9", 200, which, like Josh is saying Reggie Bush. And that's about the size Reggie Bush was as well. He was like 6 foot, around 205 or something like that. And I think that was like later in his career. Like he just, for as fast as he was and as much as he could do on the perimeter, he was still mostly in the NFL and even in college because of, they had Lendell White, who was the much bigger back. Like Lendell White and any back that Reggie Bush had on his team in the NFL, those were the guys who were going to run between the tackles, where Reggie Bush was, just like catching passes and be, like outside run type stuff. Whereas I think that Jeremiyah Love is much more solidly built. I mean, right now he's got probably 15 pounds on where Reggie Bush was, when he was a senior at USC. So I just think that Jeremiyah Love is built better and sturdier than Reggie Bush. He does have, breakaway and, like the acceleration and all that, but I just felt like he's built better. And Michael Parks is honestly, I don't know if he's just sucking up and trying to get on my good side right now, because here's an old school comparison, but I kind of like this one too. Even though Tony Dorsett was also a little bit smaller, my man TD, there's a lot of Jeremiyah Love in that game as well. Again, because of the wiggle and, the way he's able to dip his shoulders and the way he gets skinny and some of that kind of stuff, plus the acceleration and everything else, like Tony Dorsett for the longest time, longest touchdown run in NFL history against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. So but I like Jahmyr Gibbs, even though he is, again, smaller. Again, like when you look at the things that Jahmyr Gibbs is doing, with the cuts and the wiggle and the explosiveness, I just see, and the receiving ability as well, I just see a lot of Love. It's just that Love is a little bit bigger. So. Do you like the Gibbs at all, or are you like completely out on that?
No, I like the Gibbs. I just don't think he's as scat back, and I don't think
Okay.
he reminds me of more or less like
So you're saying Gibbs and Bush are more similar than Love in either one of them, basically.
I think Love's more comparable to Reggie Bush than I do Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs can do more out of the backfield in terms of the passing game. I think they have similar speed and acceleration, but Love is definitely more upright. He can run between the tackles, I think, more effectively than Gibbs can. So, yeah, I think, like, their burst and agility is very similar, but kind of their body composition and kind of other things that they can do well differ. Like, Gibbs can do better out of the backfield catching, and I think that Jeremiyah Love can run better between the tackles at the end of the day.
By the way, Vince in the chat says, "Stop kissing up, Michael. Flattery will get you nowhere." I don't know. It could get you someplace. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so some good comps. I mean, like, no matter how you look at it, with the comps that they were dishing out there, McShay and Muench, I mean, those are guys who were all playing in the NFL and who were very good at the college level. So I think that they are really, really good. So here are a couple things they really like. Well, like before we get into any of the criticisms, we'll get into the stuff that they really like about Jeremiyah Love.
Thing is, does he create his own yards? So we talk about vision and patience and speed and agility and acceleration and power and contact balance. All these buzzwords that are important and allow us to communicate. It allows a scout to communicate to other scouts and cross-checks and college directors and to general managers. They're all important aspects. They're traits that we all analyze. And I've seen some teams that have like 70 traits, it feels like. And some teams it's like 10 or 12 or whatever it is, where you're all kind of talking about the same thing. But I've gotten better at evaluating running backs. Not my opinion, just I track it every year. When I've stopped trying to overcomplicate this shit, do they create yards on their own?
I think that Penn State touchdown's Exhibit A. I mean, that is no shot that he's scoring there.
And you can do it with power there.
Can he create the yards on his own? And that's one of the things that I think we talked about with Love is he was so great yards after the first contact last year. And like the Penn State run, the 2-yard touchdown run is like exhibit A, B, and C of why Jeremiyah Love is much more physical than maybe a lot of guys would have given him credit for last year, I think. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think that this can be broken down into kind of some major subcategories. But I think most importantly, when you talk about creating your own yards, how I view this is simple analogy in basketball is creating your own shot. Like what are you doing off the dribble to create your own shot? Can you be a guy that can create space with their own dribble and get their own shots? How does that translate into football? Well, imagine kind of a play is blown up or someone misses a blocking assignment. Jeremiyah Love has the ability to turn that, maybe negative yard play or net 0 yard play and still find a way to get positive yards out of that. So again, that's the first subcategory is kind of the blown up play. You got into the next category, which was kind of the yards, after contact or, yards after first initial or yards after the second level, I guess. And then I think a third aspect of this is how he finishes runs, plowing through, putting a shoulder into someone, hurdling someone, juking someone. He's creating more yards through secondary moves, whether that's a juke, whether that's a hurdle, whether that's putting his shoulder down and running someone over. Those are all on display, are all a part of his kind of, I guess you could say, toolbox in creating his own yards. So yes, Penn State run was the kind of premier, when you're talking about competitiveness, when you're talking about creating your own yards, that's the highlight clip that you want to play, kind of on loop. But again, he's got more in his arsenal. We've seen him hurdle people. We've seen him juke people. We've seen him run people over. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's kind of how you're creating your own yards, or in basketball, creating your own shot.
I agree. Last year, Jeremiyah Love, according to PFF, had 545 yards after contact. He averaged 4.5 yards per carry on yards. Oh, that's Jadarian Price, rather. He had 711 yards after contact to Jeremiyah Love after the first contact and almost 4.4 yards per carry last season. So, like, you see that. And then I agree with everything that you said, so I don't need to duplicate it. And, like Joe says, the hurdles alone helped him create his own yards. Absolutely. But also the upper body strength that he has.
You're running through arm tackles.
Yeah, that's right. Running through arm tackles, the stiff arms that he had, and again, like
I forgot the stiff arms too. That's another I think yards after contact.
I think a very underrated because, again, he is not a massive, like between the two of them, Jadarian Price is the thicker of the two, right? So like he looks stronger and maybe he is a little bit stronger, but that doesn't mean Jeremiyah Love is not strong, and so like there's a lot of, it's not just, again, like I like the Reggie Bush from, comparison from their aspects as a receiver and because of the speed and the wiggle, but Jeremiyah Love is just built to take on more contact and has much more ability to run through some of that contact and run through the tackles. He's not just you got to get him outside and get him in space kind of guy. You can get him outside, and that's obviously something they need to do more of this year, is working on getting him out there in space.
I think you kind of summed it up there. Jeremiyah Love is just not a one-trick pony, which I think makes him really hard to compare to these NFL guys because – and that's going to, I think, be the hardest part about Jeremiyah Love's transition to the NFL. It's just you can't effectively do all those things as well as you did in college, just because everyone's an NFL defender at that point. So
exactly. Joe Allen says maybe a little Amon Green as well. Do you remember playing Amon Green back in your PlayStation? Was it PlayStation? I can never remember.
Yeah,
Xbox days, whatever it was. Packers running back. You had an Amon Green autographed jersey for a while. Do you still have that someplace?
I do.
Do you? Nice. You got to wear it sometime. Now that you're getting all svelte, and throw it in Vince's face someday. Or you could just gift it to Vince and see.
I think that was a child's uniform, so it'll take a little bit to squeeze.
I think it was an actual jersey because I think it was like somebody got that for you at a convention or something like that. But I don't know. I could be wrong. But Daniel Stabler says, as a Packer fan, he approves the assessment of Amon Green, the former Nebraska running back. I just like size-wise, they're fairly similar. I think that Jeremiyah Love, and again, like from a speed standpoint, I think that there's some similarities there. I would say Love is a better receiver though than Amon Green. Like, and Nebraska, they weren't throwing to running backs very much out of that I formation back then. And even with the Green Bay Packers, they weren't throwing to Amon Green a whole lot. So I think that there's a lot more versatility to Jeremiyah Love's game than what Amon Green had. And Amon Green was a great running back in the, until his career ended. Okay, so one of the reasons that Love can do all this stuff, create some of the yards that he's talking about, is the way he moves once he's got the ball in his hands.
He can run a little high and have a lot of pads as a target for a defender, but when you go to get him, it's slippery. It's like this subtle shoulder move. It's this lean with your body. So my target goes from this. You know what I mean? Let's call it a foot and a half of a target that you think you have as a defender. And all of a sudden you go to get the moment of truth, the point of contact. And it's like this. It's like 4 or 5 inches. Somehow, like, it's like this thing. And then they're bouncing off and the legs are going. And he's not one of those like, or like even like, he's like kind of sweetness, like a poetry in motion type thing, like, bouncing off, break this tackle. And then at the end of every run, though, is when it changes. It goes from this like slippery contact balance where he just kind of has those instincts, right? And it's like you're never getting a full target till like, all right, I'm done, but your work here isn't done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's full like a butterfly sting, like a bee, man. Like he's floating through there and he's doing his thing, and all of a sudden,
but then when he knows, like, all right, I'm going to end. This run is over.
Yeah,
this run is over. But I'm gonna drag you, and I'm gonna get 5 or 6, or even 2 or 3. But I'm always gonna make you work hard now. Mm-hmm. And so it goes from this sweet, but I mean, I like it. Ali.
Yeah.
It's like this sweet, poetic running style. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, you want to bring me down? You're going to have to pay.
I mean, if that's not one of the better descriptions of Jeremiah Love's game, I don't know what is. And I love the Muhammad Ali comparison because, the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee is obviously Ali in his prime could move so well. And he had such fast hands that just flew all over the place, but they weren't just fast. They were heavy. And that's why he obviously scored so many knockouts, was able to deliver so many big blows in an era of true heavyweights in the 70s, when he was going up against Foreman and Norton and all these different guys. So what do you think of that description? The run might be over, but it's not over for you, my friend.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of got me fired up. The way I kind of interpreted what they were saying is it kind of goes, like from a ballerina, sweet feet, twinkle toes, super elusive, super slippery, to finishing off like a boxer, like they were talking about. So you go from ballerina, real light-toed, light on their feet, and then like they said, when he's ready to kind of finish off the run, it turns into kind of a heavyweight boxer where he's trying to throw some knockout punches or some haymakers just for you to get him down. And so again, the duality that you get from Jeremiah Love all in one run, I think is what really makes him special. He has the ability to be light on his feet, to be like that ballerina, but then he also has the strength and power to be like the boxer who's trying to finish you off and throw some knockout punches at the end.
Yes. And I'm glad he didn't go Sugar Ray Leonard because, obviously much smaller and he was just mostly, dance around BS. And, he was obviously, he could throw some punches as well, but he didn't have the heft and the heavy hands like Ali had. So I love that. Toonsa said he thinks Price is getting undervalued nationally because of Love's giant shadow.
I think naturally.
I agree with that. It's going to happen because everyone started talking about Jeremiah Love right after this year's draft, about next year's draft for the first round. But all it's going to take is another season of getting out there. There have been, like look at Auburn a few years back. Look at Georgia a few years back. Like they had multiple dudes in the backfield who, both went on to NFL time. Like they shared look at Henderson and what's his face last year at Ohio State, the Ole Miss transfer. What's his name? Judkins. Yeah. Like they split time and they're both got drafted both in the NFL right now. And they'll come up here in another cut, I believe.
I mean, it's a sweeping phenomenon that was started kind of in the NFL and now is in college. Every team wants to be a two-back team. No one wants one guy brooding the whole workload.
Right. You need two guys to get through a season. I mean, it's part of how the position has been undervalued, but at the same time, it's great for both of these guys. Like Michael is saying he has Price a second to fourth round prospect himself. Absolutely. I think he's going to fall in that range someplace and he'll be a really good running back for an NFL team, but you're sharing the wear and you're splitting the wear and tear. You're keeping wear and tear off both of these guys, so like we saw what they could do last year and there's plenty more, I think, for both of them. There's plenty to go around. So Muench got into some specifics of the pass game and pass game protection. We've kind of teased that a little bit of kind of where, Jeremiah Love is in that aspect of his game.
We'll talk about the passing game a little bit and how I think he can get better in those areas. So two things that I really like about him in the passing game. One is he's willing and he's strong in pass protection. He's got to get better, but he's willing and he's strong. And the second is he's a problem after the catch. He is going to be a problem after the catch. They like to get him a little involved where they're put him out wide or in the slot, run some tunnel screens with him, get him the ball in space. He is hard to tackle with one dude after the catch. So there's some things that can improve there. I don't think he always catches the ball cleanly. I think the hands could be a little bit better. He's not a polished route runner. I also think he's not a polished pass blocker. I think he likes to lean with his shoulder. He'll give if you read him right, the defender knows which way to go, and that could be more of a problem. Also could be a little quicker identifying assignments. These are just little things he's got to clean up in pass pro, but he's got some pop and he's willing, and he'll step up and meet dudes, and he'll do it between the tackles or if picking off guys off the edge. He's, again, I think a younger player. It's very encouraging what he was showing last year in pass pro.
I want to ask you, Jess, as a guy who played linebacker, the three things that Steve Muench mentioned there, like in terms of the pass game and like the route running needs a little bit more polish. I think that's going to be addressed. We saw him for a second spring in a row this past spring, actually lining up as a receiver, running routes and stuff like that. So that's something they've actively worked on already in spring practice. And I think that, again, like it feels like because of what that backfield looks like, that there's an opportunity to see, multiple running backs out there at the same time. The hands, get out there with the jugs gun and that kind of thing. The shoulder lean on the pass protection. That's what I wanted to ask you about as a linebacker. What did you think of that comment?
Yeah. So it's funny. I thought the hands could be better in the route runner comment. Those are what they are. That's just, he can work on those things. He's a running back first. And last season was his first full season, kind of, rotating in and more of the passing game and first full season as a starter. But the shoulder shrug and the leaning is what I'm most concerned about. And I think the thing I would be like exclamation, red flag is when they started talking about he's easy to read in terms of, blocking, because if he's easy to read in the NFL, in college, I guarantee NFL guys could watch film and pick him apart, like they're professionals at the end, especially middle linebackers. So that's the thing I would be most worried about, is cleaning up his technique and then putting together a full arsenal of kind of pass blocking moves, skills, whatever it might be. He can't be a one-trick pony in the pass game protection. He's got to find ways to, again, not be readable by the defense, so he's not spoiling where a play is going or giving kind of, clues to the defensive side of the ball. So I think cleaning up the routes and the hands, that's natural. But if you I'm most concerned about, again, him giving the telltale signs in terms of his passing protection.
And I think that's something, because I'm pretty sure Love said during the spring when we got the chance, the chance to talk to him, was like what he wants. After J1 Sider came in, he asked each of these guys, sort of like, what do you want to work on? And Love, more or less, I'm obviously paraphrasing here, was like, just work on, like a lot of little things, like do some of these little. He didn't go into a whole lot of specifics on that, but I think this is one of them, because you're a part-time player with Audric Estime as the workhorse as a true freshman 2 years ago. So you go from that to the main guy who's still splitting time last year, both with Jadarian Price, and you've got Riley Leonard to help take some of the load off in the running game as well, to now we do expect that his role is going to be bigger, still splitting some time, but you've got all this body of work that you can look at from 16 games last season and go, okay, here are, the 4, 5, 6 things that I need to get a little bit better at. And as good a coach as J1 Sider is, I'm sure that with some fresh eyes, he's probably come in, and that's something that, he's ready to go with right away. And again, like the start of that, the foundation for that was during the spring, and we'll see more of that during fall camp as well. So here's what McShay wants to see from Love in terms of his pass protection this year, dialing down on that specifically.
Show me that every play is like your life, your career, your position, your role is on the line. Because I saw that from Judkins and Henderson, So I want to see a little bit more of that, because he's big, he's strong. He can do all of it. And I saw flashes even as a run blocker, second level, going out.
There's a couple of times he's popping guys. Yeah.
So he can, right?
Yeah.
Can he in the passing game? Absolutely. And can he be a difference maker? Yes, absolutely. Now we're gonna get on the jugs machine, and we're gonna work on routes, and we're gonna do different things, because I think there's more to what he can provide as a receiver. I really do. When you catch a ball, 4:42 second quarter, Georgia Tech game. keep referring to that. It's the first page of my notes here, so whatever. That was an example. He catches the ball on a check down over the middle, breaks it to the outside. Like, he catches, turns, and flies. I'm talking a standstill, looking at the quarterback, 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, catches the ball with back turned to the defense, and to get from load to arrival again, I'm talking about like the millisecond he catches it with his back turned to the defense, stationary position, to get accelerate, turn the corner, and turn that 5-yard check down into a 25-yard gain. There's a lot of juice there, man. You said it earlier, juice.
He's rarely tackled by the first defender after the catch. He's rarely tackled by the first guy that gets there. You better rally to him. Like, he'll make you pay.
And that's that is a monster part of the game in the NFL. Let's not overcomplicate this thing. Can he?
Okay, so there you go. A lot of breakdown there from McShay again on the passing game and the pass blocking. Show me your career is on the line every play. It's, it's kind of like rebounding. It's like a little bit of an attitude, like how much do you want it on those plays when the ball isn't necessarily going to be in your hands. I do agree with what Michael has said. All college backs need help in pass protection. He'll get better at that as his career goes along. But I mean, it's pretty much this, it's all on this year. So I don't know. Thoughts on that and anything else you heard there?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, the pass pro blocking is going to be a weakness for a lot of guys, and it's something that's worked on a lot in training camp when guys, rookies get to the NFL. So yeah, it's not a Jeremiyah Love problem. It's a common problem that most running backs have. I actually have kind of mixed feelings about this every play clip from McShay. I tended to disagree with him, to be honest with you. Okay. I feel like Jeremiyah Love, I get what he's saying, but I don't like the comparison to Judkins and Henderson that he started off with, first of all.
I mean, nobody wants a Notre Dame back compared to an Ohio State back.
Well, he's better than both of those guys.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And I think both of those guys
he's a much more complete back right now than either one of those guys.
Right, and those guys had a lot more time in college, So
yeah.
I just makes it sound
there was a part of that podcast where they were talking about, would you put him ahead of this guy? And I think he pretty much I don't want to put words in it. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it felt like he had him ahead of maybe not Judkins, but or maybe not Henderson, but Judkins still.
This makes it seem like Jeremiyah Love kind of takes plays off, and I just don't necessarily agree with that at the end of the day. I get it that they want to see more out of him. I think when the ball isn't in his hands, blocking downfield on a more regular basis, or, being more dynamic in the passing game every time he touches the ball. But again, I think Jeremiyah Love, every time he's on the field, is going 100% and trying everything in his power
Agree.
To be a game changer. And so I don't think he's taking plays off at the end of the day. I don't think he's not exerting himself every play. I think he's still young. I still think, he's kind of like that guy on the team that you have that just wants to run around and pop someone, but they don't know who to pop half the time, or they're just, you know what I mean? They just, and I think that will come with more experience and getting more comfortable with the offense and understanding where he needs to be, even when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. So
you just go ahead?
I understand where they're coming from, but I think that they were taking it to a magnitude or a level that was a bit exaggerated at the end of the day.
Did you just describe your short-lived career as a high school fullback?
Yeah.
I want to hit somebody. I don't know who. The dude in front of you with the other colored jersey.
So I think he has every intention. It's just I don't think it lands every play.
I agree with that. I don't think he's taking any he went back and forth, he was kind of searching for the words, and it was I kind of left that part out of it, just because he wasn't exactly sure what words that he was, would use to describe it. And that's ultimately what he came to. It was just show me that you want to be there every play. But I agree. He's not taking plays off. He wasn't on the field enough last year to take plays off. So it's not like he needed to rest because, again, Riley Leonard was doing a lot of running, and Jadarian Price was, would spell him for an entire series out there. So like both of those guys had plenty of opportunities to rest. So I don't feel like that was a factor either. I feel like it's just more what you're describing is probably a little bit more time in the film room during the week, watching cut-ups of, who's blitzing and, what a third down is going to look like. And also being on the field more on third down, because we all agree, and J1 Sider said it during the spring, this is the most explosive player that they have on the offensive side of the ball. He's the biggest difference maker they've got. He needs to be on the field on third down more. So I think a lot of that is just going to take care of itself as he plays into some more opportunities this season. So Steve Muench noticed something watching Love's game that he calls the Forrest Gump cut. Did you get to watch?
Yes, I did watch
Forrest
this
Gump
part.
Clip. Okay, so he calls this the Forrest Gump cut.
Maybe one of the downfalls with how explosive and fast he is there were a couple times I got the Forrest Gump cut. And what I call the Forrest Gump cut is when a back turns his shoulders directly towards the sideline. And you are never coaching that as a running back coach. You remember when Forrest Gump was at Alabama? You guys remember his career at Alabama? He's returning a kick, and he just turns sideways, and the coaches and the players like, no. There was a couple times where he actually turns his shoulders towards the sidelines and then gets outside contain. Now, in the NFL, I don't think you're going to do that. The benefit of the doubt for the player is that the force player lost contain, and he knew he just had to get outside, and then he could go. So maybe he made the read, okay? But there are some times where I'm like, maybe he leans on the burst and explosiveness a little bit too much, and let's get up the field. Not a lot. It's not a big issue. It's popped up a couple of times in my head.
I feel like we have to have a conversation about lane integrity on kickoff coverage, because that's what got Forrest Gump the big yards, where he was able to make the Gump cut. He literally runs a 90-degree angle after a straight line 60 yards downfield on the kickoff return, does a 90-degree left turn toward the sideline, and then cuts back up field because there's no lane integrity, because all the kickoff coverage team had bunched up against Alabama. I'll just say, watching, some of the comp, plays and stuff like that from these other running backs that we started off talking about the comparisons to, Bijan Robinson and Joe Mixon doing a little bit of the Gump cut as well with their shoulders toward the sideline. So it's not like it's exclusive to Jeremiyah Love. Do you feel like this is a legit issue or maybe a hyper nitpick?
No, I'm kind of in the middle on this one. There have been times, and it's funny that this is brought up, because there's times where I've watched Jeremiyah Love, and at the line of scrimmage, he gets completely lateral, and I'm like, man, I don't know how he does it, but I feel like this is not going to work in the NFL. Like every time I see him do that, I'm like, thankfully, these guys are slow college players that have no lane integrity, or else he'd be screwed, because that's just like, he can't, that move of completely turning the shoulders and not gaining ground while still going lateral is just not going to work in the NFL. It's
the whole get north and south, quit running to the sideline.
Right.
Thing. And obviously, as you go up a level and you're playing against all these guys who used to be All-American linebackers and defensive backs, it's much harder to get the edge at the NFL level doing it that way.
I completely agree. So again, it's something that will get cleaned up, but I've definitely noticed it. And I'm like, man, every time I kind of hold my breath, because I'm like, he's either going to lose 5 yards or this is going to break the edge, and he's somehow going to get, 10 yards up the field. So I think, like they were saying, that just goes back. It's really a testament to how athletic and fast he is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the burst that he can show. It's just, that's not going to translate at every level. And he's going to get his bell rung once, I think, at the next level, and be like, you know what? I'd probably just put my foot down and go a little bit north and south and not worry about trying to outrun someone on the edge here.
You can get away with it against the Navies and Purdue's and Boston Colleges and those kind of teams.
I guess that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Like when you're playing Texas A&M and probably some Miami as well, because they'll have some some athletes out there at the linebacking level. And, once you get into the college football playoff, that it becomes a different issue at that point. But again, because of the other skill set, all these other skill sets that he has and the ability to make guys miss and run through arm tackles and get slippery, basically. We talked about the get slippery stuff, didn't we? Because I think that is just such a huge, like what McShay was talking about, how like when he's squared up, you're talking about a couple feet of width with the shoulders, but he is able to turn that into just a couple of inches the way he gets skinny and slides through some of those holes out there, and get through them quickly as well. That's what's so impressive about him. And again, like going back to the Breece Hall comparison, I would say that is a good one, like in terms of their games. And again, obviously Jahmyr Gibbs as well, but Gibbs is a smaller guy. Okay, last one from these guys, McShay and Muench. The knee injury suffered against USC came up.
You have to talk about the fact that he did hurt his knee at the end of the year against USC. Yep. And it affected him in the playoffs. Not so much. By the way, the Indiana game, he's coming off a knee injury, and he's battling. He's sick, and he has a monster game. He had the 98-yard run. He was a big difference in that game. But for the next 3 games, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, not the same dude. 6 carries, 11 carries, 4 carries, right? Now, we are also talking about a guy who I think he averaged 10.2 carries per game. And you could say those 3 games had an impact. They did. He only had more than 15 carries in one game, though, Virginia. And that was 16. This is not a heavy workload guy yet. Riley Leonard took a lot of the load off of him. And also you're hearing in spring, and I think you're going to be extra cautious. Let's not read too much into things, but in spring he's tweaked his hamstring. He had to come out of a practice. We're going to be looking at durability for him like we would be for every other back and keeping an eye on, is this a thing? Now, the knee injury, he never had surgery, is my understanding. I looked it up. I don't think it's anything that required surgery, and he was obviously able to play on it, but he wasn't the same dude after the USC game. Again, Indiana was great, but he had the 98-yard run was the bulk of the production and all of that. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on again for his durability.
Okay, so to be clear, as we all know, surgery was not required. It was an MCL sprain. And Jesse, you had an MCL sprain your junior year of high school. You wore a brace for a little while, playing linebacker. It obviously inhibits you to some extent, never required surgery. But I don't know. Go ahead. You obviously had some thoughts, so I'll let you.
I was just going to say, you bring up so I missed a week because of that MCL tear. An eventful week against Washington High School to nonetheless
ended on a walk-off touchdown return.
I'll never ever forget my first play back after wearing that, or against St. Joe, wearing that knee brace. They throw a tunnel screen out to the wide receiver. I was the first guy there. I make the tackle, but everyone is dogpiled on top of my knee. And I just remember thinking to myself, man, I'm glad I have this brace on, because it hurt even with that brace on. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But, luckily kind of the game kind of took over and the adrenaline kicked in. But anyways, I think in terms of running back, this is just –
and a historic win over South Bend St. Joseph, by the way.
Yeah.
Vince was still there as well, so we'll get that for both of you guys.
I will say, though, talking about – and like franchise running backs, durability is the number one thing that's going to come up. Everyone is going to be evaluated for durability. And they bring up, he wasn't the same after the USC game, and he had the explosive game against IU and didn't really do anything after. I mean, he had the 98-yard run, and then he also had the powerful run against Penn State. That was a very pivotal touchdown. So, I think there's multiple things that play into this. I think teams, obviously, as you went down the line, you were going against better defenses. So a banged up knee isn't going to play as well. But also, you're playing against smarter defenses that I think we're doing more in the box and basically saying, we're going to make Riley Leonard beat us, whether that's with his own legs or with his passing ability. So I felt like teams did more to take away Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price. Yes, he could have been better down the stretch. But again, he was playing against better defenses, more athletic defenses, and obviously still had the banged up knee. So would have liked to see more production out of him, but ultimately they still made it to a national championship. And I think The national championship is the game I was most let down by Jeremiyah Love. I thought he could have done. I would have liked to see a bit more in the national championship.
Yeah, but
game.
again, like you just talked, like obviously the MCL, I think as he played and the shorter amount of rest time that the team had in between games, I think that ultimately caught up with him because he didn't wear the knee brace against Indiana. But as the playoffs went on, again, and you had less time in between games, he had to go back to wearing it because it was obviously sore. So to me, I think you're right, and they're right. Like to this extent, for any running back, and really you can say for any football player, but especially for a running back who is always, like anytime he touches the ball, is the constant target of big hits from linebackers, defensive linemen, safeties, whoever. Like they're the constant targets, and they're taking the most hits when they, and it, when they have the ball in their hands and when they don't have the ball in their hands. See the pass blocking stuff that we talked about earlier. But to me, an MCL, like this kind of injury, a soft tissue, well, this is not soft tissue. Soft tissue is like a deep quad bruise or a calf strain or a hamstring. But, like he talked about the hamstring tweak. And again, I think that some of that went back to they were really watching his reps in the spring and they didn't want him doing too much because of the load, the extended load that he had during the playoff. I don't think that this like an MCL thing like this, I don't think that is a durability question. I think that is just, and I mean, it was a non-contact injury where, you tweak, you literally sprain your knee a little bit, and then it just takes time for it to heal. And it's not going to heal while you're playing game after game against the best teams on your schedule for a month into the college football playoff. I would be much more concerned if this was like if Jeremiyah Love over the last 2 years, had a calf strain and a hamstring pull and like a deep quad bruise, like those kind of things, like he's always getting something. But this, to me, MCL sprain is like almost a year down the road now, 9 months down the road, 10 months down the road. I think he's going to be fully recovered from it. And I think in terms of the actual training he can do to get himself ready, strength, speed, agility, the whole thing, I don't think it's an issue. But, and again, the fact that you've got a running back like him who's already splitting time with another great back like Jadarian Price, I think it's going to help take care of some of itself to a large extent.
Yeah, definitely agree. I have to say, closing thoughts. Or actually, I know what I wanted to do here. First and foremost,
okay,
that St. Joseph game that we were talking about, I think the coolest moment of that whole thing was, first of all, it was our homecoming.
I'm bringing
and second
Vince
of
in
all,
here.
I don't know if you boys remember this, but I'll always remember this. Shaq scored that last touchdown with like 5 seconds left. And when he did it, there were just fireworks that started going off as soon as he crossed the goal line in downtown South Bend. And it seemed almost synchronized that the world just wanted us to beat St. Joe on that day.
It was their homecoming, right? Not ours. We were
The second year. The first year was at School Field.
Yeah, and then we beat them at their place.
The second year, I think, was the 425-yard Shaq Van that you were talking about.
Yes, that's the one I remember.
The one at School Field was their junior year, when they ended up playing in the sectional championship against Drew Tranquil and his brother and, blowing a massive lead, unfortunately, in the fourth quarter. The second year, beating them in back-to-back years, I don't think it'd been done in something like 40-plus years or something like that.
Well, that game was started by a Brandon Wadley pick six. The defense got us going on that
Brandon
game.
Wadley, another dude out there. Man, a lot of dudes on those two teams, man, like high school dudes.
I don't think Adams High School will ever see a 2-year stretch like that again.
No.
In football.
No.
Not even close. It's not, the school system isn't built the correct way anymore. It's just never going to happen.
So to kind of put a bow on the whole McShay, Muench, you have something else, Jesse?
Yeah, I wanted to end with each category and go with what your ranking would be, and not my ranking, and maybe Vince's ranking.
Okay. All right. Vince is here because he's going to start off rapid fire for us. He's going to dip in. He's going to dip out unless he wants to hang around for all of rapid fire. I don't know. It's up to him. Okay. Competitiveness. Scale of 1 to 5. 1 is the best. 5 is the lowest score. Jeremiyah Love, competitiveness.
I'm going with the 1. I agree across the board with McShay on this one.
This is a definite one for me as
Yeah.
well.
He wouldn't have played in the playoffs.
And this is like things like ball security, those kind of things to go
Finishing
along with just like-
runs.
yeah. Vision / patience. They had a 2 and a 1.5 as their grades.
I'd go 1.5 on this one.
There's always room for improvement, so I'll take a 1. That's fine. I'll go 1.5 on that.
I think 1.5 as well, because you don't see him overrunning blocks and those kind of things, and like trying to get like one of Reggie Brooks's nitpicks of a guy like Josh Adams a few years back was like maybe he was too patient and like always waiting to hit the home run and that kind of thing. I don't think you see that with Jeremiyah Love. Like he's shifty enough in the backfield, but his vision and ability to see it, like once he sees it, he's through it. But I mean, again, not perfect, but I go 1.5. Agility / acceleration.
They went 1.5 each. I went 1 on this. I think he's the most explosive and agile running backs in all of college football. I mean, that's his game.
Agreed. I
agree.
For me. Yeah,
I think it's the 1 as well. I mean, 1.5. It's just a shade lower, but I agree with Jesse. Like this is one of the best things that he does. I don't think that you could dock it.
I mean, you're not outrunning the whole IU defense on a bum knee if you're not freaking agile and have acceleration. Like he turned the corner and went down the whole sideline.
Well, and again, like McShay talked about how he caught that ball on that pass against Georgia Tech with his back to the defense at a dead standstill and then spun and accelerated quickly and turned it into a 25-yard game. So like he knows they have acceleration. I'm a little surprised, again, like you're splitting hairs. I'm a little surprised that they're as low as they are on some of these. Now, I am Tenzin. I mean, Notre Dame fans tend to either, go one extreme or the other. They're either all in on everything or they're like anti whatever. I don't think that you can probably say ones across the board, but he's not far off. He's a really good running back. Like I think if you were saying ones across the board, I'm trying to think of like who the last running back I would even, like give that kind of score to. It's been a while. My man, Tony Dorsett, if we want to go back 45 years or so. Power / balance.
I went 1.5 on this. I don't think I think he's got tremendous balance. Yes, he's got power, but he's not the most powerful back in the league in college football. So I'm going 1.5 on this one.
I think I mean, everybody thinks about the Penn State run, and all of that, and that's obviously accurate. But I would go with 2 here because I think there is a little bit of room for improvement.
Yeah, I was stuck between 1.5 and 2.
Yeah,
I would agree with the 2. I would again. There's really good stuff there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think like that little extra, like 5 pounds that he's going to have on him this year, because like we were talking about the stiff arms that he has. Like, I think he is just going to come out and be a freaking animal this year. So like, I think there was room for some improvement last year, which is, it's in part why you need to hurdle some guys from time to time, like save your knees and just throw that stiff arm or just lower the shoulder and drop the boom on them. And you don't have to worry about going over them. You can just go through them more often, especially in
I think the power ties into some of that pass blocking that we're about to talk about as well.
Yeah. And the last one is the pass game. They gave 2s and 3s on the pass game. I'm a 2 here.
Well, we haven't seen enough.
I'm stuck between a 2 and a 2.5.
And that's like, they didn't say it, but I do wonder like how much of the fact that like Love hasn't been used more in the pass game, like how much that factors into their grade. But, like that can also play to their point. Like if he were a little bit better in that regard, he probably would have been on the field.
I think you're going to see more of that this year because in the RPO scheme with Denbrock, there's like Leonard isn't keeping it and running it himself this year. Yeah. I think CJ Carr is going to be more keeping it and flipping the ball out and some of those RPO stuff.
What was your score, Vince?
I'm okay with a 2.5 in that neighborhood just because I don't think we've seen enough. I think we're going to see a lot more this year, and I think they will very easily be able to reevaluate that score.
Yeah.
But they didn't need him in that regard last year. But I think there's going to be more of an emphasis on the passing game, and he will be needed more in that regard.
Vince, did you shave? What's off? Did you get a haircut?
All the above, brother.
That's what it is. You just
Got vacation coming up, man.
Babyface. When do you guys
up.
leave again? When do you leave? Wednesday?
Thursday at 5 a.m.
Okay.
Is that the California trip?
It is.
Man.
Yeah, got to get all, done up for that.
It's funny Matt says this. He says our receivers haven't been used much in the pass game lately either. Funny you say that because we're going to address that in rapid fire in a minute as well. There's a comment that they had about that. But overall, I agree with Toonces. I think that they were, they like Jeremiyah Love
They do
a lot. So like they do think that this is
what they critiqued him are his weak spots.
Yeah, like things to work on, basically, because again, no guy's perfect. And I think for Love, if he elevates that pass game, Mr. Perfect, you should have been a pro wrestler. If he elevates that pass game, he's
right.
He's going to be a great professional football player. Okay, guys, are you ready for rapid fire?
Apparently, I am.
Since Vince is here.
So Vince is here. He wanted to come in for this first topic. I don't know how long he's going to stay, but
he's bobbing. He's weaving.
A little group text today. Now, remember, there's only so much we can say about this.
That's
but
okay.
We have a big announcement coming up very soon for this show. We teased this a little bit at the end of last week, and people were like, what's going on? Scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for it? Jesse.
Oh, I thought Vince was leading.
I'm sorry. I saw you pointing with the
No, I was pointing up.
Your hand. Okay.
Oh,
Vince, go ahead.
Scale of 1 to 10, it's probably like a 9.25. I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to go to 10 yet. Just because there's, things that still need to be worked out. I still got some unanswered questions. So, but I'm very excited for.
You can ask me anytime.
I know. Well, I think there's still some stuff that, we have to figure out as a group. But I'm very excited about the twist we are about to put on the show and the ripple effect that it will have. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm excited.
I'm a 9.5 out of 10, but like Vince, I don't know what this means for me. I don't know if this means more work for me. If this means less work for me. This means, more pay, less pay. Maybe I get some upgraded gear, a new camera that doesn't, flash, or a microphone that's a little bit better. I don't know. But I do know for what it means for this show and attracting a more broader audience, that this is going to be super exciting.
Don't go too far.
We always welcome so many people. We always welcome new people to IB Nation. So that's what we're excited about. I'm fired up. Get the message out to more people. Woohoo!
Vince would tell everyone if he could. That's the thing.
I know. Vince
have done
come out guns a-blazing.
Fantastic job of keeping this to myself.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Which is
as far as I know, anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, my entire family knows, but they're not telling anybody. So
no one messaged to Dylan.
So as far as we know, all of Penn High School knows about it.
Well, you're lucky that we're not in
school. It just hasn't got back to us yet.
It's summertime, so it's summertime.
Father David, we told you to keep a lid on this. He says, I'm really excited to be joining the show.
That means we're going international. That's what that means.
There is some more listener/viewer interaction stuff Vince and I talked about. And I talked about it with someone else. And there's some excitement. So in terms of like listener interaction, might be more of that going forward. So
gotta be careful though. We saw what happens when people live come on and talk on people's shows. It can backfire on you a little bit.
Toonces wants to know if we're adding dancers to the show. That
Just
would
Jesse.
be like maybe a cage in the back and, like a little. That's right. Matt says we're starting a band. That would be bad because none of us are good musically. The closest thing we have is Vince and our wives were flute players in high school. So
God, I can't really remember that.
She was, right? Wasn't it flute?
That's well done.
I remember that. Not only do we have the same wedding date, our wives were also flute players in high school bands. So.
Yep. And we both had our first kid.
Yep.
Exactly 12 years apart.
Yep. Married exactly 12 years apart.
Yep.
And VR wants to know when the big twist is being announced.
Whoa,
That's a topic of
the money
conversation.
question.
That's a topic of conversation right now.
It is.
If it were up to me, might have come out of the bag at least tomorrow because Vince was going to be on the show, and I know he wanted to be on the show when we announced it. But there's some more. Well, you can always do a pop in, just like Vince is doing.
Pop in. You got to pop in.
I'm a busy guy.
Oh, I'll be on the show tomorrow and Wednesday, so we got leeway. We got leeway.
There's just a lot of things that are going to come with this. So I'm very excited about it. I think, what'd you say, 9.25? I mean, I'd say 9.5. Like, they're all like of Jesse's concerns. I mean, I'll just be honest. I'm the one who's going to take on more work, but
this is true.
I'll be rewarded for it as well. So
it'll be interesting when you're not around.
That's true.
That looks like.
That's true.
But I don't want. We got to stop giving too many.
I know we don't want to give too many hints, too many clues. But it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun, and I think that we're going to take this whole thing to a different level, just with some of the stuff that we're going to be able to do now, and some of the stuff that we're going to be doing. So I think it's going to be fun. This is just an IB Nation Sports Talk thing.
That's correct.
But
I mean, there's a bit of.
Can you two just quit it out? You're
gonna be some twists down that road as well in terms of some other stuff going.
Right.
On. I just wish we could talk about it. That's why Vince and I just wanted to come in here with the gibby gab gab, and like we wanted to get at least some of it out of our system. I'm sorry, I've got a cramp in my arms right now.
Cramps on live shows, not a good thing.
I know. Fortunately, they're in my arms, so I'm just going to try to stick it out a little bit.
Just always remember, hit the camera button.
Yeah, it always happens in the summer. All right, so that's it. That's really. Craig wants more hints. I don't feel like
we give many more hints. It's going to come out.
It's going to give it away, right?
Yeah, it really will. I don't know what else we can say that's not going to give it away. That's the thing. It affects every person that works for Irish Breakdown, but in different ways for each person. So that's what I'll say to that.
Talk a little bit more because I just realized I don't have the cut that I'm supposed to have for this next question, and I need to get it here.
I'm trying to think of something else I can say about the announcement. I mean, it does affect everybody at Irish Breakdown. It actually affects more than people at Irish Breakdown. Other outlets as well. That's kind of putting it out there.
That's true.
This is
now Vince is dancing on the line right now. I am. So
IB mascot. We've already got one.
It's Vince. I hate that I hate that it keeps taking, or it took everyone's YouTube tags away.
I don't know why it's like that. All we get is their actual thing that they sign in with.
Someone must have abused the privileges.
I don't get it. It's like that on every show now. And
all right, I'll break the ice. Here's what we're doing. It's
oh boy.
IB will be on field during the night game this season.
We're going to do play-by-play.
We're basically doing a college game day show on the fields.
Are you trying to get everybody else in the market stirred up because people are going to go, post on their message boards that this is happening, and then there's just a storm of stuff that comes from other people?
You're looking at the new Nick Saban, Chris Fowler, and Kirk Herbstreit.
I think you're going to like it. I guess the question is, Vince, we're going to like it.
Yeah.
Do you think our audience is going to like it?
I do, because it's going to be some added stuff. I think it broadens the horizon a little bit, which is always
that was my word.
So,
okay.
I mean,
stay tuned.
Yeah,
We don't know. Hopefully by the end of the week, we're going to be able to do this, which would be Thursday, since we're not going to have a show on Friday. But we got to have a little bit more conversations in terms of what we're going to say and all that.
If it's Thursday, I'm going to have to see where in the world Carmen Sandiego is going to be, because I might have to come in I might have to come in from an airport or wherever I happen to be.
You know what your job is. You know what your job is. You have to push for this.
Oh, for
to be
Tuesday
done
or
on
Wednesday. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm on it.
All right. Are you sticking around or are you leaving? What are you going to do?
I got to get
Okay.
going.
All right.
You guys enjoy rapid fire and just stay tuned, everybody, because it's going to be great. Keith wanted to know if I'm going to go put the smackdown on Lincoln Riley. Wrong end of California, unfortunately. Be in the northern half, not the southern half.
Little NorCal. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that is not going to happen. At least not next week. So I will see you everybody tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Vince.
Wonderful day, everybody.
See you then. So let's continue with rapid fire then, Jesse. And like after we made everybody mad because of the teasing that we're doing. So in the first part of the show, of course, we heard a lot of comments from Todd McShay and Steve Muench from the Todd McShay Show and their analysis of Fighting Irish running back Jeremiyah Love. So Muench made an interesting observation about Notre Dame's wide receivers as well in watching some of the film on Jeremiyah Love.
That jumped out to me when I'm watching his explosive runs and just his speed. And I kept seeing it. I was like, wow, these Notre Dame receivers are blocking their ass off out here, man.
Yeah.
They are fighting. And then it dawns on me, like, of course they are. They know that if they can secure that block, if they can stay, just stay on the guy for 2-3 seconds, they've got a chance of this being a game-changing play. It's not like they're out there like, I'm not blocking for this 4.7 ass.
Well, you better block in Notre Dame because you don't get to run routes very often anyway.
All right, so Muench was some, good observation. McShay coming in hot there at the end. You don't get to run routes very often. Is it a problem that's the perception of being a wide receiver at Notre Dame, Jess?
I think it's a bit exaggerated. I think everyone knew last year they were a run-first team. When Sam Hartman was quarterback, they were definitely throwing that ball a lot more. And even before that, it's not like this is a run-first offense. I get it. It's not a premier spread offense.
It's not Navy and you're out there stock blocking all day.
Right. You're not – it's not the Ohio States or, the Ole Misses or, maybe some of the Alabama offenses in terms of firepower, but they're still going to throw the ball and you're still going to get your shots. But I think it's first, the two observations, basically. First observation, I think it's great that, that they notice how well Notre Dame blocks. And that's the thing is Jadarian Price, Jeremiyah Love, Riley Leonard, whoever it might be, they're not making those type of runs without good perimeter blocking. So
exactly,
it's good that is reinforced by the wide receiver coaches. So I think that's a huge praise to Notre Dame's wide receiver coaches and really to the wide receivers of they can still be committed even if the play isn't directly benefiting them at the end of the day. They're bought in on Marcus Freeman's team concept, right? They're choosing hard. They're making the hard play. They're stock blocking on the perimeter, etc. But again, I think the second part of the comment of, they don't get to do that very often, that's a bit exaggerated. And they know who's playing quarterback this year, and they know who the offensive coordinator is going to be. So Riley Leonard was a very one-off type of offense where there was going to be a lot more running than there was passing. But you would hope that those wide receivers are going to enjoy the fruits of their labor this season because C.J. Carr is going to throw the ball. And I think that's going to, again –
he's willing to throw contested passes
as
well. He's willing to give these guys 50-50 balls. And, I mean – it's been a while since you've seen a Notre Dame quarterback who was fully willing and committed to doing that. And that's going to be one of the biggest differences in this offense is the receivers are going to be more involved. But, to the point of what he's talking about with these guys as runners, look at the size of some of these guys, especially when you look at Jaden Greathouse, and now you're going to get Malachi Fields in the mix as well. The size of you would expect those guys to be committed to the run game, but you can also now, because you have a different kind of quarterback. Last year was obviously you had to suit things to Riley Leonard, because if you just kept trying to pound a square peg into a round hole, you weren't going to make it to the playoff, let alone all the way to the national championship game. You had to suit that to Riley Leonard and what he did well, not ask him to go beyond that. And so that obviously required the wide receivers to block a little bit more. And I'm sure there's still going to be fully engaged, active blockers when it comes time to block in the running game, but they're also going to be a lot more involved in the pass game this year. That's obviously going to be good for everybody, because that also means, because of that threat, then, that just gives more open space for Jeremiyah Love with the ball in his hands. Fill in the blank. CBS Sports has a projection for this season's college football playoff bracket. They have Notre Dame as the number 5 seed playing number 12 seed Navy, and it would be blank if that happens.
It would be phenomenal if that happens. It means, in my opinion, Notre Dame accomplishes the 2 goals for this season: make the playoff and win in the first round. Because if you get Navy in the first round, you sure as heck better win. And I would stack my money pretty high on Notre Dame to win a home playoff game against Navy. So to me, that's, you could, maybe moan and groan that they're not one of the top 4 teams in the country, whatever, but they're still in the, top 8. They'd get a favorable first round matchup and they're in the playoffs. So that's phenomenal to me.
I mean, from a Notre Dame perspective, obviously you can't control who you're going to play. And if Notre Dame is the number 5 seed, I mean, would you sign up for that right now? I think
yes,
most people would,
especially if you're
sign
getting
up
to play Navy.
Yeah, exactly. 5 seed means you probably got 1 loss, and you're going to play
It means
Navy.
You're not playing a 1 through 4 until like the quarterfinals or semifinals potentially.
Where I have the problem with it is the Navy thing, because that is
Navy's
saying
not making it.
That's saying they're going to be the top ranked group of 6. Now, if you look at their schedule, Notre Dame is the only Power 4 team that they're playing. They're going to play Army, obviously, at the end of the season. They're going to have Air Force. They're going to have, and we're going to get into their schedule here in just a second. Like, they're going to have a very manageable schedule, but they had a very manageable schedule last year as well, and they were undefeated and ranked in the top 25 when they played Notre Dame, and Notre Dame just beat the brakes off them. And if that happens again this year, which I look at the way Notre Dame plays and the athleticism and the size and the skill and everything else that Notre Dame has, it's going to be a problem for Navy, because people are going to look at that and say, well, maybe they won all these other games, but they got their doors blown in by the only team, legit team on the schedule. Are they really going to be the highest ranked group of 6 team? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I think it would be almost impossible for this to happen, for Notre Dame to see Navy twice with the second time being in the playoff. By the way, there are other projections for the first round. Oregon as the 7 seed, Georgia as the number 10 seed, LSU and Miami in the 8-9 game. So that would be 2 Notre Dame opponents who make it to the playoff, according to the CBS Sports projection. And then Alabama as the number 6 seed against number 11 seed Iowa State, winning the Big 12. And then they have Clemson, Texas, Ohio State, and Penn State as the top 4 seeds getting the first.
I'm sorry, but 2 Big 10 teams aren't going to get the top 4.
I don't think so either.
It's just not going to happen.
You think it'll be 2 SEC over 2 Big 10?
Yes. Or a Big 12, undefeated Big 12 team. I have a hard time believing 2, and especially Penn State.
Well, Penn State has got a very manageable schedule, as we've talked about, and that's why they're going to beat a lot of teams on their schedule by at least a couple of touchdowns, if not more. And that's why Drew Aller is going to be getting a lot of Heisman talk, and they're going to be ranked very high all season, because they have a schedule that sets them up for success. So I think it's a very easy pick. The question is, what's going to happen when they get to the Big Ten championship game, and how do they handle that? Because they basically got the same 3 Big Ten teams from a year. Well, 3 of the 4 anyway, getting in. Yeah, DJ says every year people say Iowa State. Why? I mean,
it's an easy pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's been
They're the most consistent.
They're about the most consistent. That's what I was going to say. Like in terms of like that top 4 or 5, they're very consistent. I would be picking Arizona State right now, just because of everything that they return. from last year. That doesn't mean I think they're going to run the table in the Big 12 team, because remember, they started slowly and they had to, basically keep winning out at the end of the year just to get to the Big 12 championship game. And they had to get a loss by Colorado to help them out as well. But in terms of everything Arizona State has coming back, if they're able to play that level all year long, there's no reason they shouldn't be the favorite to win the Big 12. So I would have them over Iowa State personally. So speaking of Navy, let's guess their over/under season win total. And again, when you look at this schedule, you can see why CBS would be potentially projecting them, to be the top group of 16, because you've got Blake Horvath coming back and everything that he did last year. But they start off with Virginia Military Institute.
That's a win.
Then they've got Alabama Birmingham.
It's a win.
At Tulsa.
It's a win.
Rice.
It's a win.
Air Force.
It's a win.
At Temple.
Win.
Florida Atlantic.
It's a win.
North Texas.
Are they the ones that's joining the Pac-12?
No, that is Texas State.
Texas State. Okay,
yeah.
That's a win.
At Notre Dame in November.
It's a loss.
South Florida.
It's a loss.
They're going to win South Florida.
Do they get the after effect like last year? Because remember, they got beaten pretty badly against Notre Dame, and then they turned around the next week and went to Rice and lost that game as well, and scored the fewest points they had scored all season in that game, even less than they scored against Notre Dame. So, do they get an after effect there if they come in, with what would that be, an 8-game winning streak going into the Notre Dame game? Memphis,
I'm gonna say loss,
and then Army Navy game.
So my favorite thing to do on these, like I've kind of told you before, is you look at the maybes. I think they have 3 definite maybes, maybe 4.
So I'm going to go ahead and set it at 9.5.
I'm trying to figure 9.5 or 10.5. I think it has to be. It's got to be pretty high. Let me think. 2. I think it's. Man.
10.5 just feels too high.
I know.
I want to say 10.5.
That's the thing. Well. I want to say 10.5.
It's got to be 9.5.
But I think that's too high. I think you're right. All right. Let me look them up. They better be in here because, oops. I don't look at these in advance. Come on. I don't look at these in advance so that I don't cheat and see what the number is before we do it on the show. The fun of it is guessing it live on the show. Okay, so Navy, are you locked in at 9.5?
Yep.
I just don't see them losing 3 games.
You're going to do 10.5?
I'm going to go 9.5. Changing my mind. I'm going back and forth. Man.
They're definitely losing to Notre Dame. So
right.
That already knocks you down.
That's 11 right there.
To 10.5.
Yeah, 9.5 makes more sense. 9.5 makes a lot more sense.
Between Army, Memphis, and Tulsa, I think those are.
Yeah. Here we go. 9.5. 8.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Man. Pound the over on 9 wins for Navy, I think. That's. And the over is only minus 148. The under. So obviously they're favored. The odds say that they will go over. The under is plus 120. I don't think.
Do they have an option for 9.5?
You mean like can you buy it or whatever?
Yeah, do they have a 10+ win or something?
I'm sure they do someplace. I'd have to look. I don't want to get too deep in that. So all right, Navy, 8.5. I think that is not very respectable of those mids. I think the over is easy with that one. All right, so former Florida Gators and NFL head coach Steve Spurrier had some interesting comments recently on Texas quarterback Arch Manning.
picking Texas to win the SEC football.
Most
correct?
people are. I think that is going to be the consensus preseason pick.
They've got Arch Manning already winning the Heisman too. Yep. And my question is, if he was this good, how come they let Quinn Ewers play all the time last year?
Even though he was hurt all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he still.
And he was a 7th round pick.
Yes.
All right. Why'd they let Quinn Ewers play so much last year?
I love
Steve
listening
Spurrier
to Steve Spurrier talk.
wants to know. Do you buy or sell anything that Steve Spurrier's saying?
I sell it. I think Steve Spurrier was kind of being a hater there, to be honest with you. I think it makes perfect sense why you don't throw Arch Manning to the wolves as a freshman with all of the talent that was on Texas. Like, he didn't have any starting experience. And the last thing you want to do is throw a kid out there and just ruin his confidence off the rip, right? Like, I just think there was too much to shoulder with how much talent there was for Texas last season. I think it made sense to put Quinn out there. But it's could they have done more to incorporate Arch Manning as, Quinn got hurt and, the season kind of went on? Sure. But to me, it sounds like a lot of hater energy at the end of the day. Like, again, I don't with how far Texas, what the expectations were. I think there was serious, national championship aspirations. I just don't think you ask a freshman quarterback to take all of that on.
Yeah, you've just been to the college football playoff with Quinn Ewers, and you have him back. Obviously, there's a lot of hype, a lot of expectations on Arch Manning, so that does add a different dynamic to it. But Quinn Ewers still threw over 30 touchdowns and got him to the playoff last year. It's not like as you're riding along over the course of the season, Steve Sarkisian is going, man, Quinn's probably going to be a 7th round draft pick. Like, that's just too low. That's just not enough talent. We should put Arch out there instead. It's not like Quinn Ewers was holding Texas back. They more than held their own in their first season in the SEC, and he got them to the playoff for the second year in a row, So I think you're exactly right. Like, Steve Spurrier is always, and by the way, this was on the Another Duly Noted podcast is where he said that, to give credit where credit is due. It's just like Steve Spurrier is kind of always, thought of himself as the guru of quarterbacks and the all-knowing quarterback guy. Didn't really work out when he moved to the NFL, like that passed him pretty quickly. Great college coach, but like you look at some of his guys who he could take some guys who had some talent, but like they had some elite numbers and a lot of wins when he was there in, at Florida, but none of that necessarily translated to NFL success either, so to be knocking Quinn Ewers, who Steve Sarkisian won a lot of games with at the college level for where he went in the draft pick, it's a little bit pot calling the kettle black, I think. So, but it's also a guy we haven't heard from in quite a while in Steve Spurrier. Like, do you, when you hear Steve Spurrier, Chuckle Bunny, like, do you, automatically associate him with Florida even, or like, who do you associate him with?
When I think of Steve Spurrier, I think of his time. Wasn't he a coach at
Washington?
I remember him more so during his NFL career than I do his college career, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Arkansas, but I know he didn't coach for Arkansas. I'm getting him confused with someone else. But
he actually won a Heisman at Florida, playing for the Florida Gators, and then was the head coach for a long time. He was the coach with the visor. It was like him.
I know who Steve Spurrier is.
Oh, that's who I was asking. Like, who did you think I was talking about?
No, I'm saying I thought for some reason he was the guy that coached Arkansas for a while, but it definitely wasn't.
Gotcha. A decision on whether or not to expand the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments is going to be made in the upcoming weeks. If the decision to expand goes through, it would be for the 2025-26 season. So it wouldn't be for this season. It would be for – now hold it. It would be this season. It would begin this season. The tournament would expand to no more than 76 teams. So they're talking about potential expansion up to 76 teams for this year. Buy or sell it?
I'm a huge sell on this. I think that I don't even like the fact that they do the play-in games with 68 teams. You know, like me personally, I think it's kind of feels like a participation trophy or reward trophy when you start adding teams like this. Like, oh, we want more games and more viewership and more money, so let's expand the tournament. Like, it should be a prominent club. It should mean something to get into the tournament at the end of the day. I like the format that they have now. I think there are plenty of teams, plenty of variety. You get all these different, mid-conference winners. You got your at-large bids. Everything is taken care of. To me, again, I don't like taking away from kind of the value in making the tournament as is for a lot of these schools, and it's an accomplishment just to make the tournament. So the more you dilute that and the more you let people in, I think it takes away from making the tournament.
Fuddy-duddy. You might as well just have a shirt. You might as well just like swoop your hair back and have a.
Well, at what point are we just going to let everyone play?
Might as well have a shirt that says Vince on the front.
Might as well just get rid of the NIT and let everyone in.
You're only adding like 8 teams. Like the tournament at one point used to be 32. So should college football just go back to leather helmets and have never made a change? Like to the 1940s, nothing should ever progress. Like, should we just have the BCS?
Yeah, but do you watch March Madness? Like, I need more games.
Go back pre-BCS and have the number 1 team playing in the Orange Bowl and the number 2 team playing in the Rose Bowl and not even play each other. Like, is that how things should be done? Just because it's like the way things have always been done? I like more games. I want more entertainment. The tournament is the best part of the season, especially when it comes to the men's game. And I realize people are against it and the trophies and everyone gets one and all that kind of stuff. More games. Make Tuesday and Wednesday more fun in that first week of the tournament. I am here for it. Start our games at 2:00 and go for it, baby. More games. That's what I want.
Question for you.
Yeah, I mean, the women's side, it would water it down, I think, a little bit more. I would agree with that, DJ. But if you're going to expand the men's, the women's has to expand as well. But again, you're just talking about like more playoff games, Find another first round site, Dayton, and then add another one. Maybe Dayton and Denver, the 2 Ds, get, like those play-in games or something like that. So like the teams from the West don't have to travel as far and that kind of stuff, because that's a big thing too, is like those play-in games are starting at like 7:15, 7:30 Eastern time, and then 10:00. We're like, remember Notre Dame's last trip to the tournament when they had to play in Dayton? They won, but then they had to fly all the way. Wasn't it Los Angeles that they played in? And, they got in at like 5 a.m. or something like that afterwards. Like add some more teams, add some more sites, have fun. It's basketball. It's the tournament. I'm buying it. I realize I'm in the minority, but I'm all for it. Vegas, not a bad spot as well. But a lot of people say Vegas for everything, but I don't know. Can Vegas have everything? Fill in the blank. The New York Yankees are doing a bobblehead giveaway night on August 21st when they give away a George Costanza sleeping under his desk bobblehead to the first 18,000 fans through the gates. That's blank.
Tremendous marketing. There's going to be a line for blocks outside of Yankee Stadium. I think this is really funny you posed this question because my friends and I sent this to each other and we're like, what do we got to do to be in New York to get this bobblehead at the end of the day? So it's definitely going to be a collector's piece. They're going to probably be grown men fighting each other for this bobblehead. But I think it's great. I've actually seen the picture of it. I don't know if you've seen the picture of it yet. It looks pretty awesome.
I have. And the irony is they're calling it a bobblehead. I don't think his head's actually going to be bobbling because he's literally got his head on a pillow underneath the desk, just like the episode of Seinfeld where he built the like the whole living quarters and bed underneath his desk so he could take the nap. It is fantastic is what it is.
Are you going to go get yourself one?
I was going to say my birthday's coming up in October. You might have to be searching eBay after the fact and, be thinking about me for my birthday.
So last year they did the Cavs did a bobblehead for the Kelsey brothers, and we got a couple extras, and I actually sold one on eBay for like $150. I can't imagine what that Seinfeld one will go for.
Oh man, no kidding. They're also doing this for a Red Sox game.
It's like on a Tuesday night too, which is interesting.
But it's a Red Sox game in August. It's like, I don't think school is back in at that point. Like you should have a pretty good crowd for that game already. Like, surprised they're not doing it for like, Orioles or Blue Jays or Tampa Bay Rays or whoever. It seems odd that they're giving away a high value, prize like that for a Red Sox game. But hey, give it to the Yankees. Neither one of us are Yankees guys, but that's like high quality gifting right there. Need to see the Cubs work on something like that.
I have my Shota Imanaga bobblehead, so I'm good. Couple service announcements here now that we're at the end of the show.
Okay.
Did you like my new hat today? I'll give you bonus points if you can tell me who it is.
The A makes it look like Arizona Diamondbacks, but I don't recognize.
Double A team. I'll give you a hint. Nearby.
Akron.
Arrows.
I was blanking on what Akron would be. So the Akron Arrows. Have you been to a game there?
Double A game Friday after work when I was in Akron.
How was that?
It was a lot of fun, actually. They were playing they're the Akron Rubber Ducks now. They were playing the Nationals affiliate, and Paul DeJong was doing a Double A stint. So I heckled him the entire time because I hated him every minute he played for the Cardinals.
Nice.
Then last public service announcement. I don't know if you saw this, but have to give a shout out to my alma mater, Siena Heights University. They're closing down next year after next academic year.
Really?
So RIP to Siena Heights. Yeah, they don't have the financials to keep going.
No kidding.
Yep. Just announced today. Got an email this morning that.
Is there going to be like some kind of big reunion or anything for everybody before they shut it down?
We were talking. It's like we got to go to homecoming.
That school it's like one of those, like it was founded by
Dominican sisters.
Like, was it early 1900s or even late 1800s? Do you remember?
I'm gonna Google when they started.
Don't even know the history of your own school.
It was founded by the Adrian Dominican sisters in 1919. So they're gonna be shutting down after over 106 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I hope my degree still stands.
Yes, your degree still stands, but it sucks that you'll have a degree from a school that's no longer in existence.
Well, that's the crappy part. Is a lot of people are like, "Who?" When you say Siena Heights, and now it's going to be even harder because it's not. Right. They can't even find it.
They were around for 107 years, but then they shut down. In 1926. So is this the last year of school then this year?
Yeah, the 25-26 year will be the last year that it operates.
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of other NAIA schools in recent years, they started up football just a few years back, a little bit, a few years before you got there for the specific purpose of trying to generate more interest and enrollment and stuff like that, because not everybody got full scholarships and obviously it didn't work out. And our former next door neighbors, as it turned out, we didn't know this until like after you started taking visits, in that house that we previously lived in, they were both Siena Heights University alums. And then about a year or two after Jesse started going to school there to play football and baseball, they actually moved back up there to Adrian, Michigan, where it's located. And he became one of the deans there. I think didn't he get into like fundraising and stuff like that?
Yeah. Yep.
Man,
yep, he was.
That's too bad.
I know, crazy times, but they made it sound like it's kind of going to be a sweeping trend. A lot of these smaller schools, I think, are going to start shutting down. And I have a friend who works in admissions at Holy Cross, which is a small school right across the street from Notre Dame, and he said post-COVID, a lot of these smaller schools are really struggling. So really unfortunate, but had to give a shout out to the alma mater, and I will definitely be at homecoming this upcoming season.
We'll give our PSA, if you went to a small school like that and you can afford to give back, it sounds like maybe you should get in touch with somebody because they could really use the help right now, regardless of of where it is, because even though they might be small schools, there's still a lot of really good education and really good athletic opportunities as well, that come along at those schools. Father David, by the way, says you're thinking of South Carolina with the Steve Spurrier stuff. And I forgot that Spurrier, obviously,
That's what I was thinking about.
After Lou Holtz's time was done, Steve Spurrier was the head coach at South Carolina. So that's kind of the color scheme that you were thinking about.
I knew it was a red school in the South.
Yep. Looks like Tommy got in just in time for us to shut things down tonight. Tommy is closing it down with us. Last call. Here we go. All right. Well, we appreciate you being here. And again, we've got some big news that's going to be coming up. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we're able to announce it sometime this week. We will let you know as soon as we can. And it's like summer. Got to get some electrolytes in the body. Hit the like button before you leave. We have got a guest on tomorrow's show. Our old friend Carter Curls will be in, and we'll talk a little Texas A&M football with Carter Curls tomorrow. Hit the like button. We'll talk to you then. IB Nation Sports Talk.